Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steven, and we have kind of revamped our local store, Covenant Tulsa, with a couple of new ideas and new approaches. A lot of the concepts we've been talking about in this cast for the past couple of years. So we're going to talk all about that today. If you have a local store that you go to, if you're a local store owner, or if you're just interested about the local environment, this should be a good cast for you. So stick around.
Let's dive in without using the word all right. I did it.
You did it.
I said, let's
Congratulations.
Here we are.
Welcome, everybody.
If
If this is your first time listening, we want to make a point to say this, or your 98th time. We're glad that you're here.
Welcome.
We're always glad that you're here. And if this is your first episode, maybe you're a local retail store owner and this happened to show up in some capacity on a feed, which is the internet these days, just feeds. Then welcome. You're going to enjoy this conversation. We've been doing this cast for a couple of years, and
I also want to say a huge welcome to anyone in our local community who's tuning in, because we're going to be talking a lot about our local store, and we've made some big changes.
Which we don't talk about enough.
Some little changes, but some big changes. We've been talking a lot about the local store as a concept for a while, and kind of breaking down the current challenges that face local stores and how to address those and how to move forward and push everything in the direction we want to go. But yeah, if you're joining your local player, first off, thanks for being part of the local community. I love our local community. It's cool to watch, and it's fun to be able to take these concepts we talk about week to week and use them, and then get real, honest, candid feedback from our local community and input, which we've been doing for 6 to 9 to 12. I mean, I do it all the time as part of the community, but...
And the thing is, you are a very active member of the local community expressly, and that's just a part of your DNA. I feel like I'm on the other side of essentially a two-way mirror, where it's a lot of decisions that are being made, and then I get to watch and see like, ooh, what's going on, what's happened, without being nearly as active, which I really am bummed about, because I ran into the situation where essentially my wife is now getting home from work at like 7:30, and so the opportunities that I have to not do the adult things like let the dog out and get dinner ready and all of that is a lot more rare than I was hoping that it would be. So hopefully that changes, but I feel that that pull and that like dearth of not having that in my life right now.
Sure.
And actually, like, it helps that we get to play a lot, testing games out and we did our live streams for a while. That was really helpful. But there's nothing quite like being an actual part of the community, especially revolving around a singular game where you can all talk the same shop at the same time.
And I mean, it's that quality about those games that we were so drawn to in the beginning, which is like you have this group of people that you see every week, and you constantly have new things to be talking about, and you're all tweaking and testing your decks and talking about the new cards that get spoiled and all that kind of stuff, or miniatures or whatever. So it's really as part of the local community, it's awesome. My biggest thing right now is, so I come every Wednesday night to the store, and it's Destiny and Transformers night, so I can kind of be involved in both of those. But like 2 or 3 months back, I think Keyforge moved to Tuesday, and then other games that I play, X-Wing and Champions, moved to Thursday, and like it's really difficult to dedicate more than one night a week, because I also a lot of times will come up on Saturday for either tournaments or paint day or drafts or whatever. So right now I'm just kind of bummed out, because it's like I want to be playing more of these other games, but like I'm just kind of picking and choosing.
There's so much you can do. You got to choose.
Yeah, I think ultimately you have to choose.
You have to, and this is what we're finding with a lot of the games that we've picked up here recently, is that you have to find ways that games don't require your full attention.
Sure.
So like Transformers Turbo Drafts are a great example.
I have found those
Keyforge
ways.
is a great example.
Even with Destiny,
every once in a while.
we're doing a slow-go draft as a community, which is really helpful to like stay involved without having to like dedicate. But the hardest part of that is like having to basically be a kind of a traveling player, right? Because it's like if I just randomly show up occasionally on a Tuesday, I don't see those people every week, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real barrier, because like people get busy and they get away for a month and they kind of feel weird coming back to it, and like there's some friction and that kind of stuff. That's a totally different thing to address.
They say constant, spontaneous interaction is the key to actual friendships.
That's how I feel about Destiny.
And I feel like that's why the hobby is so good at that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we have a couple opportunities here locally, some events that are going on that we want to let you know about. First of all is the Warhammer Champions City Championships. This is a special limited event series that's on June 22nd it's a totally different event from what we usually are hosting here in store. Following the Play Fusion rules, doing a ton of like cash prizes and just like tons of product. It's actually pretty exciting because I'm curious to see how that actually goes and actually being a part of a bigger and more monetarily driven tournament structure. Because that's something we've just philosophically not really wanted to do ourselves. But seeing how it goes in the Play Fusion format that they have established and who shows up and what the vibe is like, what the atmosphere is like, I'm very curious about that.
I'm also curious. Then that's an event series. I think there's 8 to 12 city championships happening in the United States leading up to Gen Con in August, where they're having, I think, a $20,000 event or something
crazy.
On that
it
scale.
Feels a little bit like Spoilus, doesn't it? That old philosophy of like, we're going to get people's attention by putting big numbers in front of dollar or after dollar signs.
Well, and I mean, I
think it'll work, honestly.
I'm excited to see, because we talked a lot about Champions when it came out last August, September. We were all very excited about it. They have an app where you can play the game. You can scan your literal cards in, and you have your same collection online as you
now
offline.
On Steam and Nintendo Switch.
Nintendo Switch, Steam, and so there's I was very happy to see they launched a like solo campaign on the app.
Yeah.
Which I think the app is obviously great for learning and getting your feet into the game, and then having a solo variant where you can kind of just enjoy this like story being built and told. I think that's super cool. It's a super unique and fun and fresh game. They had some trouble with their second set just in terms of design and just general interest. It almost felt like the first set went way better than they expected. I've seen this a million times.
It's a tale. I haven't not seen it.
When a game is successful, it's like overly successful up front. Then they play catch up because they had to reprint the first set and print the second set. The second set obviously started getting printed either close to or before the first set even came out. And so it's just this whole spin, and then you're trying to catch up, and then you aren't supporting it's like we're so focused on making sure new players can get in that we're not focused on keeping current players engaged.
And just getting product on the shelves, which if
so
you can't do that, you can't do anything.
They launched this tournament series, and we're hosting one, June 22nd, like you said, and I'm curious because they're getting a lot of attention. I feel like there's a lot of players that are having a reason to get out and watch the cards and play the stuff. And it's an old school.
It's an experiment.
And I'm curious to see how it works.
Because it kind of feels like that, that stepped thing was like, okay, we need to get the game out and all of that, and they did that. And then it was like, okay, now we need to get the Switch out, and we need to get it on Steam. And so there was a lot of movement in the digital direction. Physical players are saying, wait, what's going on? And so now I think we're finally seeing the other, half of that. Not really a trident, is it? Because there's really only two sides.
Just another piece of the puzzle.
Whatever you would call that. A duodent.
The other side of the coin.
Yeah, two coins. It's all landed on heads and tails.
Well, and from what I've been told, I haven't seen yet. I still have. So what we do as a group is we split, me, you, Jonathan, and maybe Robert, split booster boxes that come out as they come out. And that's kind of what after the second set, we decided to go back to that, which is just very minimal. One box, this is what we get. We try to make it work with this and move forward. That box is on my desk, and it has been for a few weeks.
Oh, we need to split that up.
Yeah, we do need to split that up. But from what I've been told, the third set is significantly better designed.
All the cards that I've seen are way better.
Set.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just natural excitement as well. So we'll see. I'm very curious to see how that works out. And if you're in the area and you play Champions, you should be at that event.
And we do have a limited number of slots. And it's June 22nd. Once they fill up, it's filled up. So if you are interested in this, I think there's $1,000 going out to first place, 500 or 1,000.
1,000. I think second and third each get 500 or something, and they all get a bunch of booster boxes and all kinds of crazy stuff.
So you can check it out. Go to our website. If you go to the local store section in the nav bar there, you can go to Hours and Events. You'll see the event listing there, and also learn a little bit more about our store if you've never been. So it's City Championships for Champions, June 22nd. We're amped to be hosting that, and it's going to be a wild tournament.
Now,
excited.
Another kind of special big event that we're hosting is in June 7th and 8th is the Hyperspace Trial for Star Wars X-Wing.
Yeah, classic.
Of course, second edition. The Hyperspace format is the basically only things that have been re-released are legal, so it's a little more restrictive. Winner of that gets to qualifies for the World Championship, as far as I'm aware. Tons of prizes, templates, tokens, promos, cool stuff. We have two. It's important to understand we have two flights for that event. There's a Friday night and a Saturday morning flight. And the way that works is basically the first 3 or 4 rounds of the event happen at different times. So it's like
Friday night you run 4 rounds.
Saturday morning you run 4 rounds. And these are different groups of people playing. Yeah. But effectively, when the top players from each of those come together for the next round, it's as though those rounds were just happening at the same time.
Okay.
Strength of schedule carries over, record carries over. You finish out the couple rounds of Swiss. It lets us basically give more space to each player in the space. X-Wing's a big game.
Yeah.
And still host a 80+ person X-Wing event. And then for people, especially locals, it's a convenient. I saw there's like a group of 6 or 7 Austin players coming for the Friday flight.
Oh, cool.
But like for locals, it's obviously really nice because like I'm playing Friday night, and if I don't do well, I'm done for the weekend potentially. Yeah. But if I do well, then I can come back the next afternoon, keep playing, and it doesn't have to be like a 12-hour
the grind fest
slog.
Yeah, that's really nice. So check out Hyperspace Trials June 7th and 8th. And then of note, we got in touch with Gold Squadron. They're going to be coming in on day 2 of the Hyperspace Trials with their live streaming gear and kit. And I love those guys, and I love the setup that they have.
Yeah, we were mentioning them on the Adepticon episode, where it's like their streaming setup is just immaculate.
It's great.
So I'm excited for them to be in the house and streaming. Yeah.
We'll check it out. We'll relive some memories of those old X-Wing games that we used to record and commentary. Maybe you can hop in for a round of commentary or something.
Well, I'll probably have the free time because I'm probably going to get smashed.
You're probably going to lose big.
By smashed, I mean lose, by the way. Not like properly smashed.
Well, maybe
a little both thing. I have a rule. Once I'm below 500, every loss is a beer in the store. I'm just kidding.
That's a format waiting to happen right there.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this thing. So talking about the local store as an entity. So if anyone was following the Destiny Masters series, we kind of turned that one in midair. It started out, and the big idea was like find the best Destiny players, explore the draft format, which is a format that has not been explored or wasn't at the time. I guess it still really isn't being officially supported in a lot of exciting ways. So we wanted to bring the draft format to the fore. We wanted to find the best players, have this set of 6, super competitive events that lead to this like final championship finale that gets everybody in the same room and finds out the best Destiny player in terms of draft, at least. And by about 3rd event, we were like, I don't know. The appetite for this is not exactly what we were expecting, and our own philosophies about the way that tabletop games should be approached, just macro, had been shifting all along that entire process, kind of understanding that, wait a minute, like a vast majority of this audience is not very competitive minded or like focused on winning and competing. A lot of interest in exploring theme, a lot of interest in getting together and meeting people and connecting and playing whatever deck you want or whatever list you want and just exploring the ideas of the game that you like without having to have the best deck or the best list. And so we kind of we canceled some of those events. We pivoted the finale. We had Jeremy come in from Fantasy Flight, designer of Star Wars Destiny. And we just, we wanted to pull it all off and just kind of go the other direction and say, you know what, you can switch your decks between rounds. The winner isn't going to get any particular special prize. All the prizes will be distributed essentially randomly. We're not going to tie. What we started to understand was if you incentivize winning by putting all of the prizes at the top for the winners only, you're going to get people who are there exclusively to win, and they're going after the prizes, and you're probably going to lose a lot of the people who aren't there to win.
Well, but a lot of those people, too, will show up knowing they're not going to win.
Right.
And then they'll just bear the first 2 or 3 rounds and lose a couple games.
Yeah.
And then they'll find people that are also...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but
then...
that's... Yeah.
The problem, though, is like... If you incentivize winning, you're only getting that player rewarded, basically. If you don't incentivize winning, the people who want to play to win will still do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like if I want to be the best at Destiny, I don't need any incentive. I'm the type of person that wants to beat people with a great deck that I've tested and I've done well with.
Well,
right?
It's also like, if you think about it, and it's something we've talked about a lot. It's funny, I actually kind of want to go back and listen to our old podcast, because I feel like if you listen to January of last year all the way till now, you'll sense this theme that
the thread
that just keeps going. But the reality of like winning is its own reward, right? Like it feels good to win a game,
right?
So when you incentivize it, now you're just doubling down, right? So like if I go 6-0 and then I make the cut and then I win the championship, that's a pretty good feeling, right? Mm-hmm. My deck is validated, my skill is validated. This was fun.
Recognition. Right? The biggest thing, community recognition is there.
So when you just triple down on that, it's like, well, now if you just lost all day and also
have no chance at prizes or anything exciting,
that's just a the other part of it, right? I think it comes back to like that. If you're in that environment enough, it's like that's normal enough, right? I mean, everything in the world has academic bowl in high school. It's like, well, the winners get things and they get to go to the next event, and the losers go home, and like it's whatever. But like when you just start asking the question, it's like even when we have a Destiny regional at 70 people here or an X-Wing hyperspace trial sold out, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why is everyone in this room actually here, right? And if you answer that, some people would say, like, I can't remember the last time my answer to that at a Destiny event would have been to win the playmat. Like,
Right.
the reason I'm here is to win
Although
this.
that Vader mat that Malucci took out from under you, I think, was a big deal.
I was there to win that mat. It's true, but that's also the World Championship, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I'm at, just as an example, a monthly Destiny event in our local store, and the prize is like the harder to get alt art. It's like the monthly prize, right? Eventually, this will be on eBay for like 10 or 15 bucks. I'm not there to win that card, right?
Right.
I'm there to compete. I'm there to play against the friends that I see every week, right? I'm there to prove that I know how to build a deck and to play and to challenge myself and to see new things and stuff. And so when you start running down that list, though, and then you start recognizing like a handful of things are happening, right? And this, we could talk about this for days, I'm sure.
That's what we're here to do.
That's what we're doing. Which is what slowly happens is that, and this is my least favorite thing, which is why I think you and I play test well together, because neither of us are wanting to run the juice, right? The tier 1 stuff, because it's like what ends up happening, even in the latest Destiny regional meta, there were probably like 10 to 12 viable decks that were known. Which is impressive. But still, with enough playing, I recognize that 90% of my games when I travel to Dallas to go to a regional, which I did, were going to be against one of those 12 decks. And 90% of the cards in each of those decks are going to be the same as, if I play against Vader, Greedo, it's like 90% of your cards are the same. And I'm going to see one or two Vader Greedos today. And so what ends up happening, though, is because winning, right, is one of the goals and the prizes are on the line and what's going on, people min-max really hard, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. But like even for people that want to compete, it's like it can become boring. Right. It's like, oh, well, do I really want to go see?
It's the spreadsheet problem, yeah.
And so all of a sudden, when you just start asking, and more, our answer to the why are we here to play was like to have a good time, to like interact with people, to like explore this game.
And the imagination element, right? Of like getting lost in something kind of an escapist thing. It's the same reason you might go to watch a movie about like this Marvel movie coming up. What's it called? I'm just kidding.
Endgame?
Everybody's just talking about it constantly.
Yeah. Spoiler, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to spoil it. But the thing about it, right, is like we saw the Covenant Masters I'm really happy we had it happening as this philosophical kind of paradigm was shifting, because we got to implement these changes event after event and kind of see. And all of a sudden, like at the finale, it was like literally everyone that shows up is going to get these prizes, and then we're going to randomly give out everything else. And so that Friday night, that first Friday, right, we did Trilogy Constructed, and it was 6 rounds. You can play whatever deck you want. You can switch decks. You can change your decks. You can do whatever you want. No prizes for winning or whatever. And it's like the amount of fun and enjoyment happening. And there were people that showed up that were like, I would not have shown up if this had been a typical thing, which is my secondary concern, which is how many people aren't coming to these events because of how they're structured.
Right.
And our theory is that there's a lot of people, right, that otherwise would stay involved in a community and keep coming and keep showing up if it were structured differently. But as importantly, it's like even the people that have been coming and continue to come to these events, it's like I showed up with 6 different decks. So I got to play a different deck every round. There were also people that would get to like round 3, and it's like, again, there's nothing on the line, and it's just about having fun. And it's like, oh, that deck looks cool. And then their opponent says, your deck looks cool too. And then they're like, want to switch? Right? Sight unseen.
But it's just a much different environment. It's a much different atmosphere. And it's more conducive to the things that we're interested in promoting. I mean, it's straight up.
Sure.
It's the connection element. It's the meeting those friends element. It's the competition in the spirit of, trying new things and not doing the same old min-max stuff over and over.
I think that's important to note as well, which is like, inherently, a game is only a game if both players have agreed to the rules and are both interested in winning.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that winning has to be the goal. right? There's a bigger level goal outside of why do you play Destiny in the first place, right? And I assume you didn't start playing Destiny or X-Wing or any game out there, Champions, whatever, to win a playmat or to win $1,000, right? I would be surprised if there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, I started playing Spoils may have been that way back in the day. It's I started playing Spoils because like there's a lot of prizes.
That's also the risk of the toxicity element though too. Yeah. Like if you literally have somebody who's coming into this saying like, I could make a lot of extra cash, maybe this could be my job now, the energy that person is going to bring with them and the stress and the anxiety that comes with that burden of like, I'm here to make money and like, I'm going to not have that money unless I do well. It's a totally different atmosphere than, do you want to switch decks and play the next round?
Well, and I had a Master's, a really good example of this, which is I'm playing around, right? And one of my opponents, she played a card and thought it worked a certain way. And I was like, actually, it doesn't work that way. And so then I was like, well, let's ask the person, the TO. He came over, confirmed it wasn't run that way. And it's like in a very competitive, high stakes event, right? It would be very normal to be like, well, the rules are that you play a card, you resolve it, and it happens. And so you played the card, you have to resolve it even if it doesn't work how you did it. But it's like, naturally, I may do this anyway, but like in the moment, it's like, there's no reason, because like how disappointing and sad and frustrating. It's like you travel 4 hours to come to this event, you play a card, misunderstanding how it works.
Right.
And then now you lose the game or feel like you lost the game because you played that card and it was incorrect. It's like, why would anyone want anyone else to feel that?
Right.
Like, yeah. There's the other side of that coin, right? It's like, in a standard, if I was at Worlds and I did that in the top 16 and the card worked differently than I understood, I would totally own the fact that I didn't know, right? And it's like, oh, I played it. I'm not even, I wouldn't even ask, right? It's like, this is just crazy. But there's a lot built into this. And so when you get to the root of it, though, and you ask, why are we here? Why are we playing these games? Why are we at these tournaments? Why are we at these events? I think, especially I think about like the history of Magic and Pokemon and all these games over time, and it's like, it's so easy for the result to become the goal, and it kind of gets switched out, right? Where it's like, I doubt anyone early on started playing Magic for the tournament prizes, right?
Right, no.
Or showed up every week or, that kind of a thing. And so like, it just felt like everything was about that, right? Everything was about these tournaments and winning and finding the best deck. And
I mean, you can see how it happens too, right? It's like, you've got a product and people are really digging it. And there's there are people naturally gathering to play and find out, is your deck better than mine? Like nobody knows. It's a Wild West kind of thing. And so people are gathering, and then it's like, you know what? Let's put some stakes on this. Yeah. And Magic even used to be like the top card of your deck. You were betting essentially, and then they did away with that pretty quick because
Pokemon
it caused
were the
so
prizes.
much.
People used to do that. It's like I'd win your prizes.
Yeah,
like,
and that again, the angst that even that little wager causes is tremendous. And you can imagine the 13 to 16-year-old crowd like losing their favorite card out of their deck. Like that's devastating, and it would lead to
I wouldn't
nothing
even play
but
my
good
Charizard,
conclusion.
right? It's like I'm just not going to use it.
Terrifying
which is
stuff. But you can see how it kind of escalated, and it's like, well, we can give people even better reasons to do this, and therefore more people will be playing and keep playing, and then they'll bring people in, and you can see how it all goes. And it has changed and morphed over time, and then you have the FFGs of the world. They're like, we're never going to do cash, and that's not the environment we want. Then you have things like, even like Dungeons and Dragons, right? They didn't do any organized play, right?
Still not.
They have their little
but there's not
adventures
prizes
or
whatever.
But no, it's like, no, you should get together. So there's the stratification of the way that this is done and the different bets that you can make on what works has been tried in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I think for us, so much of what we're doing with Covenant right now is peeling it back. Like we've been doing this locally for 7 years now, is that right?
Yep.
And we've been in the space since we were kids, but officially for like 11-ish, 12 years.
12-ish.
And so it's like, okay, so we, in the similar way, we started throwing ideas out and seeing what worked and seeing how many people we get. We had our 20-plus person Thrones tournaments, These, did this work? Did that work? Did these games work? And so now we're kind of peeling it back and saying, whenever we were first getting together to play games like Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, that was the magic that led us to want to do Covenant in the first place. So let's peel everything back and say, how can we give that same magic to everybody who comes into our local store, everybody who interacts with us online. That's the feeling and the connection that we want to create versus just kind of following along in the kind of progression of even just organized play as it has gone along. And so that involves taking some risks. And I mean, this is a slightly risky thing. Changing the local environment and kind of reshuffling. Change is always tough, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you immediately agree with it, there's going to be friction. But we generally are doing it with what we feel is like the best way. This is the best way forward. And some people might disagree with that, and that's fine. Hopefully, our initial indicators are pretty positive. But there's a lot of people that this is a great relief to, where it's like, man, this sounds way better. Because you can imagine, the people who are probably most interested in those alt arts are the ones who never have a chance of winning them, because they're there as collectors and they're there as theme people, and they want to see the different poses of Ahsoka or whatever. The competitive players, it's just another thing to put in your binder or throw on eBay a lot of the time, right?
Well, and I think it's been one of the most helpful parts of having a local environment as people who are running a business like this, right? You just get to see it.
Yeah.
And like, I think we've seen it enough where and this is the craziest part of everything we're about to talk about, that we changed about our local store.
Can you hand me my phone, actually? I'll run down the actual official list. It's right up there.
You got a case now and everything?
Yeah, I got a case. Look at this. Sweet.
So
it's got the wave on it.
The reality is that I think we swung the pendulum far at first, right, conceptually, and it was like, what if we just, because the industry inherently, right, is built on events and tournaments, particularly around these expandable games, right? So board games, way less so, but
even though that's a big chunk of the industry.
That is a big chunk, yeah.
So as far as players,
at first, it was like, well, what if we just don't have tournaments ever? Like, what if tournaments are just gone? And tournaments are a fine tool for randomly pairing people of similar performances together, like Swiss-style tournaments particularly. And it's a nice structure that everyone kind of understands. There's going to be rounds and then probably
a fine way to pair people. Yeah.
And the reality for me is just like, it felt like 99% of events were competitive tournaments and 1% was not, maybe. And like, I felt like the ratios were mismatched, where it's like, because I still understand tournaments and competing, and you want people to play their highest level and their best deck to kind of have that challenge, right? There's a lot of people that are interested in that. But over time, what happens with these games, if all these events are competitive tournaments, it becomes increasingly hard for new people to join that community.
Yeah.
And I saw this with Destiny particularly, because we have some really good Destiny players that have been playing from the very beginning. And so a new player comes in, and not only do they have the challenge, and maybe Thrones is the worst at this, because of the skill, the fundamental skill gap.
You just get wrecked.
Yeah, it's like, I remember one of the locals, Josh, came in to start playing Thrones, and it was a good 6 months, I think, before he won a game.
He got through it, though.
But like, the average person can't lose at something. So shout out to Josh for sticking through it.
That's awesome.
But can't lose at a game for 6 months and stick into it and enjoy it. And so that's where, like, you see it with Destiny, where it's both the collection size and the card pool, not having it, right, when you first start, combined with the lack of knowledge about that, right? Combined with the lack of experience with all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's like, over time, these communities get a little smaller, and a little smaller, and a little smaller. And I think something like Magic, the secret we've talked about several times with that game, is that they have always had Friday Night Magic, which is draft, it's casual, it's crazy, they have the Commander format, they have all these things going on.
First of all, I understand that Commander is like the most popular format ever. And then, everything that I've heard from the whisperings of people in the periphery about Magic is that it's all about the Friday Night Magic stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the institution that really matters.
Yeah, and they have the casual element. They have a competitive element. They have a huge tournament prizes, lots of cash. I think this year they're giving out $10 million. Like, it's a crazy institution at this point, right? But like, the reality of it is that I feel like what a lot of these other games are missing is all the non-competitive stuff, right? Because you just see it. Someone wants to get into Destiny. They come in, they buy one set worth of stuff, they get wrecked for a couple weeks, and then you don't ever see them again. Yeah. And it's like, or they get busy for a month or two, a new set comes out, they missed it, and then they feel behind, and then they stop coming in. And it's like, asking the question, what structure and what kind of system would actually keep the most number of people engaged and involved and leave the door open for the most number of people to join? And I think that is what is being left out right now, which is like, I see tabletop as this small community of people playing these games, and then there's the rest of the world. And if we want to keep appealing to that small pocket, this might be the right path, right? The competitive tournament
Certainly, it
prizes and stuff.
will do that. Yeah.
But
Shrink. New game will come out. More people will come to that. Then that'll shrink, and the new game will come out, and you'll do that
cycle
forever
over and
if you
over.
want it. Yeah.
And that's why I think you look at the growth in the industry, and not only has Magic grown, but like board games have grown tremendously.
Huge,
Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs have grown tremendously.
What did they raise? Like 11 million, 12 million at Critical Role
It
animated
was
series?
$11 million Kickstarter.
It's amazing.
Which is phenomenal
Yeah.
at Critical Role. So, anyways, the thing to me is even for the competitive tournament players, right, that want that, it's like,
Which I can be sometimes. Like I am
yeah.
that sometimes.
Like I said, I
like
wanted
when
that-
I run that Gungan deck, like it's like I'm
here
here
to-
to do this as well as
I'm here
possible.
to prove
right?
something.
Yeah.
And that's I'm into that, right? Like I'm a competitive person, but it's also the stepping back and realizing that if that's all we ever do, eventually I'm going to have 2 or 3 people to play against if I'm lucky.
If you're lucky.
And
That's
so-
the reality. If you're lucky.
And if I'm doing that, it'd be like, when, like in sports analogy is like, not every day is a game,
Yeah.
right? And not every day is the playoffs. So like, there's a huge part of this process that doesn't need to be, and there may be people that never participate in, right? It's like how many pickup basketball? Let's be real. I play pickup basketball. And it's like, that is never going to be as intense as NBA Finals,
Right.
And it's like, right now I feel like what we're hosting is the NBA, maybe even the Amateur League, but the NBA and the playoffs and stuff and whatever. And it's like, if that is the only people that could ever play basketball, how popular would basketball be?
And maybe more specifically, like if the only thing that was ever organized was that, and then it's like, if you want to do anything other than this, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can come to the court and shoot around and whatnot, but the only thing that we're ever going to really care about is the finals. Then you're going to end up with a situation kind of like we have. And so it's really challenging the thinking of an event must be a competitive event, and taking that framework and saying like, we can do exciting things that are getting new players involved or that are satisfying current player bases without it being strictly a competitive format. And that's something that has been taken for granted over the past many years when it comes to tabletop games. If you're going to run an event, well, we already know it's a competitive event. Tell us the prize spread, tell us the format, tell us how long
Day
it's
and
going to
time,
take.
the
right?
rounds, etc. But
So
that's where one last note on that, and then
I want to dive into the changes.
But it's like I lost it.
All right, the changes
we'll
are.
go back to the changes.
Let's talk. This is the kind of the basic rundown. So our standard weekly events, which we run like every night of the week, are no longer going to link prize distribution to performance. So these will be distributed randomly or in various exciting and interesting ways that we determine as we go. We'll allow for deck and list switching between rounds, and we'll rotate through a variety of formats. So normally it was kind of like come in, get paired in Swiss, play, prizes,
Standard,
go to the winner.
whatever the main format is.
Do it again next week. So we're going to be moving. This is a lot more work for us because you have to continually be building the calendar, like thinking about how you want to build the calendar and introducing new formats, developing new formats, this kind of thing. So that'll include official prize kit events, which is like what we've been doing, as well as new player events, release events, limited events, and custom non-official formats, which could be like, we're going to get together, we're going to play Arkham, but everybody's going to be playing against the same scenario, like those kinds of things.
Very cool.
I'm glad you think so, Zach.
Yeah,
You signed off on it.
I hopefully do.
And a big shout out to, I know maybe they don't want it, but Robert and Ryan and Grant and Rafe and everybody on that side of this. They do a great job with the local environment, and this is an effort spearheaded by what is the operations team here at Covenant. On the competitive events front, we have like things like store championships and regionals. They're going to remain a key component of the event calendar, but they'll serve as a more significant and unique opportunity for players to compete. It'll feel more like the finals, rather than just a new iteration with a few more players.
It's even like the city championship and the hyperspace trials we talked about at the front of the show, where there are these. We're not afraid of competitive events, and they will happen, and prizes are fine, and this is all good. But it also, by not making those every week, it makes when those actually happen seem a lot more special.
Yeah, more significant.
Like if every week was the NBA Finals, they would not be important.
It wouldn't be that big a deal. And those events are going to be run according to the official rules and requirements. So that's like by the book. We're not going to tinker with that. This is the format. This is what the publisher is sending down. This is how they want the event run. We're going to do it. Then we're also going to introduce social events as a more common fixture of the schedule. So these are events that are strictly about gathering together, probably not based around any particular game. But like one of the things we did in the early days of the store was like a chili cook-off.
Yeah.
Right, that was
Remember
super
the Bake
fun.
Off? We had the pie
Everybody
contest.
brings their crock pots in and stuff. And like
Well, and
that,
even Robert, obviously
and
volunteered
then,
to be the
like,
testers.
yeah, we were
and the
testing
judges.
it and like
It's
giving scores. It's great, and so we want to do more of that. So that's things like Paint Day is a great example of
Yeah,
a
one of my
standard
favorite
one that
days of the
we've been
month.
doing. But like the cook-offs or the
And I think one of the important things of this, right, is again, if you're asking why you're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
if you really get down to it, it's like
costumes,
I said earlier, right? It's
Halloween.
like, whoa.
like remember the old
The
Netrunner?
event?
Yeah. That was
By the
fun.
way, my wife certainly thinks that's the funniest picture, where I've got like these feathers coming. Anyways, she found that randomly and was just like, "What is this?"
Yeah, your alter ego.
But the thing about those kind of events, right, that's interesting is I said right now, it's like I play all these games, but I only come on Wednesday nights. So like I don't really see as many of the Keyforge or the Champions or the X-Wing players as often as I maybe used to. X-Wing used to also be on Wednesday, so that was easier. But you have these events where it's just essentially a social gathering. Of course, people are going to bring games and play games or whatever, but like it gives people a chance to kind of like, it lets you form a bigger community.
Yeah.
That's not game specific, but it's place specific, which I think I'm a big fan of.
And that's where even we were talking about social events that revolve around things that are not necessarily even tabletop. So like a Hearthstone event, right?
Yeah.
Get
What was
together.
that called? Fireside event? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's what
let's
that
do
was.
this kind of stuff. Or like, hey, do you want to get together with Nintendo Switches and trade Pokemon and stuff? Like, there's any number of ways that this could go. Or even it's like, hey, I want to teach origami.
Sure.
Like, let's all get together
Well,
and make some
it's-
paper stuff.
It's because, right, like the driving point, the underlying issue is that people connecting and having a good time, right? And so like if connecting people is the reason, you can do that
Yeah.
in a billion ways.
Get together and watch the Thrones finale? Although that's kind of a rated R situation.
Yeah, that's right. I happen to think that games are really good at doing it.
Yes.
So obviously that's why we are here.
That's why we
Yeah.
invested in
Yeah.
that for our entire lives. Yeah, that makes sense. Weekly game days. So this is the individual weekdays, and they're kind of designated games that are happening on that evening. Obviously, you can come in and play anything you want whenever you want, but those have been moved around, and the goal there is to promote community crossover. So we try to pair communities together that would potentially work into like, hey, I want to show you Transformers, and hey, I want to show you Destiny. Like, this makes sense.
And if all of these weekly nights and meetups and stuff become not competitive and don't require you to own everything and don't require you to know everything, all of a sudden that also gets a lot easier, right?
I'll hop in a Turbo Draft as a Destiny player every now and
Or
again.
it's like, I'll let you borrow a deck.
Yeah.
And you can play. You haven't been playing Champions, but now you can.
Yeah.
Right? And
Have
kinda
around with
that
us.
kind
It's
of
great.
vibe.
And then we had been doing a big kind of, the whole point of the membership was having access to this big league where we would distribute essentially the same kinds of prizes that you would get now in our normal events, but it was on a point-based system, and then we were tracking all of that in spreadsheets and whatnot. And so we're dropping all of that. We're going to do, I think, there's a lot of interest in doing more focus leagues, like the Escalation League that you're doing for Destiny, I think is a great model of having multiple different kinds of leagues that we can now run separate from this kind of macro league structure. And so instead, we're doing a lot more event and prize-driven incentives on the events themselves. So rather than having kind of this macro universal system, it'll be, hey, if you come to this event, the prizes will be there and it'll be better.
Well,
so it's more of a kind of a contained
I
system.
think part of the idea as well is like, you have your, so like specifically Fantasy Flight switched their league prize updates to, they have new prizes every month. And a lot of stores will host a monthly tournament or a league where you earn that stuff over time. And so essentially it lets us shift a lot of those prizes to a singular event.
Yeah.
So like our monthly event for Destiny might include all those prizes given out now as participation in random, not focused on winning, right? But it's like, that's the night to get it. And that's the night that may feel a little more like normal or historical normal, right? Where it's like there's rounds and you're using maybe standard format or whatever. So
yeah, absolutely. And so with all of these changes to and so this is not, I mean, I don't, it's fair to frame this as not terribly extreme, right? Like there were extreme versions of this plan that were kind of, pulled back in, and we kind of wanted to find what was a push in this direction that we could see what everybody out there thinks locally. Do you enjoy coming in more? Do you find yourself coming in more? Are we seeing increased attendance? Those kinds of things. Without throwing the baby out with the bathwater entirely. So I think this is a really nice middle ground between, we're trying to hit every type of player and we're trying to get the most amount of people involved in the hobby as we can. Because ultimately what every person who plays games needs is more people to play with. And so we're really trying to maximize that achievement with this store model. And so with that comes a new membership, right? So obviously, we're dropping the league, the new membership thing. So here's how the membership's changed. Still $15 a month. And then when you sign up as a new member, you receive a free starter for whatever featured title that you'd like, up to a value of like $40. So a core set or a 2-player starter for Destiny or whatever it is. And the way that we want this to really kind of start to work is if you're new, if you've never played Destiny before, let's say, heaven forbid. And
what universe is this?
And I call you up. Let's say we watch the latest Star Wars movie together, and then it's like, hey, I know that you really dig Star Wars. And there's a game, Star Wars Destiny. I play it about once a week. I thought you might be interested. And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. I love Star Wars. I'll check it out. And so I get you into the store. I demo Star Wars Destiny to you, and we're talking about it, and you're like, well, this is really cool. I want to get involved. What do I need to do? And it used to be like, well, you buy a couple of starters, or you buy this 2-player starter. It's about $30 to $40 to get started, and then you need to buy some more stuff to kind of get down the row. And then if you want to play with us every week, you'll need to pay the entry fees, and so it kind of starts to get like, I don't know, this is a lot to take in up front.
Yeah.
So instead,
if you approach this from totally new to this hobby,
yeah, it's unbelievable.
And then it's like, one, you have to learn the game, but then it's like, all right, here's all the stuff you buy up front. And then you need to open it, organize it, sort it, and build your own decks and own lists and stuff.
Then you can play with us.
Then you can show up every week and lose for a while and pay to lose.
And pay for the
And
for
also,
the pleasure.
while that's happening, the people winning are probably getting all the cool stuff.
Yeah. And you can look at it.
You can
maybe they'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Anyways,
go ahead.
So I can instead say, all you got to do is pay $15, start a membership here. That's going to get you all of the starter material that you need. And then if you can also play in every event for this month for $5 off, which essentially makes everything free.
Yeah.
And then if you don't dig it, like cancel before the next charge, and all you've done is paid $15 down. If you want to continue to play and kind of keep going down this road, it's just going to continue to be $15 a month to get all of your events for free.
Yeah.
And in addition, you're going to get a $10 store credit for anyone that you refer that becomes a member.
So if you referred me to Destiny,
I would get $10 in store credit. Maybe I say, you know what? I'll buy you 3 or 4 Destiny packs with my store credit to get you off and started.
Well, and I think,
or maybe I put it towards a purchase that I want to make.
That's part of why the changes, it's all linked together, I think is the trick of all of it, because it's like, if our weekly event schedule are, for Destiny specifically, standard events, constructed, prizes to the winners, etc., then all of a sudden, even when someone comes in and learns to play the game and decides to buy it and builds a deck and decides to pay $5 to get on this thing.
You say it like that.
Yeah, it's like they do all this stuff and then they show up and it's like you're playing standard constructed with 6 full sets of cards of Destiny and you just bury them, right? Because you're running your optimized Vader Greeter deck or whatever. And like, because we've changed the structure of League Night, right? It's like you can switch decks, right? Mm-hmm. People can play fun stuff. People can do whatever they want.
You're new? Like, I don't care.
We have new player events. We have draft events. We have turbo drafts. We have all this kind of stuff. It also means you walk in, maybe we are playing standard constructed, but it's very easy for me to say, oh, you're new. Do you want to borrow my pick your favorite character deck?
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, the whole vibe of it is like hang out and learn and gain experience and
help
share.
This person without feeling like you're having to sacrifice your chance at winning something.
Yeah, one of my least favorite moments in a tournament is when you're playing against someone new and it's like, well, I came here to murder everybody and you're here just trying to learn. And it's like, I don't want to pull any punches, but I also don't want to just like give you an awful experience, right? Like I've been in that position.
And it puts on the players too, right? Where it's like, we're telling you to do one thing, but then we're kind of telling you that you need to help this new player too. And it's like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
We're also bringing in some exclusive seasonal tokens that are going to be distributed at special monthly events. They'll be on the calendar and all of that will basically just be a nice little incentive to say like, we recognize you as members. We are super, super thankful for you being here and for everything that you do for us. And so we're going to just give you kind of things that only you will ever have access to. So these are tokens designed to be used in any game. They can just mark anything. They got our logo on it, and we'll do various designs, and we'll change the paint schemes based on the seasons is kind of what we're looking at right now. So it's just a little like, thank you. It's a nice thing to have. And then we're also going to bring back member exclusive events, and we're going to do them a lot more I would say professionally or a lot more structured.
Make it an actual event.
Yeah, so we'll close off the store. We'll invite the members. If you want to attend, we will probably ticket these events. So like you pay a $5 or $10 charge to get an official entry ticket into this. We'll have it catered. We're looking at doing like happy hours with beer during those times. And it's just a way for us to, again, like you should feel a little bit special because you are special. Like we really appreciate that $15 a month is everything for us locally, right?
Well, and I think that's the point, right? Is like to us, we've talked about this a lot, which is, essentially the local store struggle of charging full price on products
Right on. Yeah.
to basically make up for the value they're providing for free of a good space to play, demo materials, teaching new players, getting new players in, stocking supply, etc. And one of the challenges is that the way they provide the most value, they have no way of actually like charging for or like economically sustaining.
Or you do table fees, and that's weird.
Well,
I hate them.
The problem, right, and it gets back to one of our whys, right, which is we're trying to get as many people into tabletop as we can. And so when a new person walks in on all the stuff we've talked about earlier that's in front of them, and then it's like, oh yeah, and to be here for 3 hours is $10, like just to exist. There's friction created there that we don't want to create. So that's where with our members, right, it's like this is a way for people who believe in what we're doing, right, who want to grow the local tabletop community, who want to have a place to go, who want to have more people to play with, to directly say and vote for this effort. And it should feel like you're doing that and you're a part of this, right? And so for us, that's why we have these exclusive events where we bring in everyone that's really a part of this thing, right? Our local push in Tulsa to build the tabletop community.
Yeah, kind of the engine,
And we have a good time together, and we celebrate everyone that's involved and everything that's happened, and continue pushing forward and growing the community.
Yeah, and then of course we're also members open up the ability then to pre-order or special order anything from us. You don't have to put any money down, so you just say, hey, I want this thing. We order it for you, and then whenever it shows up, you pay for it. So that's another kind of nice little privilege. And it's not, I know it's not a huge deal. There's some shops that will do that regardless. But for us, like, and even talking to Brenda, she was talking the exact same. She was running the same problem on the recent Gamma video that we did.
Brenda at Gamma, she's a retailer down in San Antonio.
Yeah, Night Watch, and they had run into the same problem where it's like, you told me you want this thing, and then now I get it for you, and then I never see you again, and here I am with this Funko Pop doll or whatever it is. And so it's like we had to switch.
What a specific example. Did she say that?
Yeah, she said
That's great.
that. And so we had to switch to, they had to switch to like, we need you to pay us up front because, these are issues. And so we're the same way where if you're not a member, you do need to pay up front, and then we'll get that for you and let you know when it's in. But if you are a member, it's like, just tell us what you want and we'll get it for you and we'll make your life easier. So those are the changes. Like I said, it's nothing dramatic. And I think a lot of the times going too dramatic is a sign of, I think for us, especially I've seen us do it many times, a sign of immaturity. In the early days, I think we were very, very interested in and willing to just like do a full U-turn and try new ideas. But at this point, it's a more careful and measurable approach to solving this kind of a big problem and trying to make it better.
And I think, we've always believed in what we were doing. And so we saw the way it was, and we thought we knew how we wanted it to be. And you just learn a lot when you actually start implementing this stuff and seeing how people interact. And again, I think all of it, it's interesting because it's really more than what's funny about it really is that the things that were happening before are going to continue happening, right? It's just, it's not people are still hanging out playing games in the store.
We hope so.
Hopefully.
Maybe the lack of competition will drive some people away from the weekly events. We'll keep an eye on it.
The real shift is there's just a cultural and philosophical change. And it's like we are focused on getting as many people involved in tabletop and into this community as possible and making it as easy as possible for them to stay involved in this community. And so...
Because it's not really that easy.
No.
In a lot of ways, just tabletop gaming and the various things that revolve around it and are involved in it are not the most streamlined and easy and intuitive, compared to a number of other industries. Sure. And so it takes some real work to think about how to do this.
And that's what, like, when you look down the list of changes, it's small things that I think make a big difference. And just in terms of for people that really want to be involved, right, they're going to stay involved in this thing. But I think for the other 99.9% of the population that could be, even here in Tulsa, involved in our local community, the goal is that it makes it a lot easier for them, right? And that we can continue growing this community, and that there will be a lot more people involved. And even, I think, naturally, like I said earlier, that ends up resulting in more competitive people and more people at those events, that the current audience being heavily served those events will end up having a lot more fun and a lot more people to have fun with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see what we...
Yeah, I'll ask that at the end.
Before we get to the Patrick Sharkey, we're going to answer and ask Kevin a question. A couple of other things that are changing. We're starting to move pretty quick here in the second quarter of the year. We are launching a couple of new things on our end that should be of interest to a number of you listening. First, for anyone who's a Keyforge player or interested in Keyforge, we are launching what we're calling the Choose Your Deck Gallery. And so this is essentially kind of like singles for Keyforge. So you can come onto our site. We are listing a number of decks. We're starting pretty small, I think like 24 decks to kind of, again, a little conservative, give it a little test. And they will be in the shrink wrap, they will be unscanned, and you will be able to see the deck list in the picture and then also in the description of the product. That means you can also search our store using the little search box. And if you type in, for instance, routine job, you will be able to pull in any decks that have routine job in it, which I think is a big deal. But this is basically like, we're going to do a tiered pricing system. So we'll kind of start it at the price that we think it's worth. And then over time, any deck that doesn't sell after a certain amount of time will get discounted. And then if it doesn't sell again, it'll get discounted. So we're doing a kind of I saw this system in an outdoor gear shop when I was in Colorado. And I was driving through and I needed like some ski pants or something. And I went to this a really cool system where like when somebody gets the used gear, they turn it in, they evaluate it, they put it on their shelf. And then it tells you it's been here for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And every week that it is not sold, it goes down by like 5%.
Nice.
And so eventually, like there's either a pair of pants for $20 or somebody swoops in at 70 and buys them before they get to your price. So,
and I'm pretty sure the plan is to have a weekly routine.
Yeah, we're going to experiment with it. Right? We're gonna kind of see how that goes. So check that out if you're looking for particular. I'm at the point now where I'm looking for particular things in Keyforge. I want the bat drones, or
I want particular cards or particular houses. I mean, there's a value in. I think there's 35 combinations of houses, even just the 7.
Wow.
So like, if you have a particular combination that you want,
you can go see what we got.
Worth something.
And we'll keep updating with new decks as we go along.
On the Keyforge note, have we talked about because Set 2 is on the horizon?
Yeah.
It's supposed to come out May, June-ish. Q2 is what it's listed as. So if you haven't already hopped on the subscription train to guarantee you get those boxes, whether or not there's going to be ample supply of Set 2, Set 1 was gone. So I'd recommend sign up. And have we talked about the tokens publicly yet?
Not really. I don't know that we're ready yet, but we probably will. We certainly, we're kind of ready to talk about the exclusive keys that are going out with subs, but let's do it in earnest maybe next week.
Okay, I'll say no more.
If you were a Keyforge subscriber a couple of weeks ago, you got an email about that, but we haven't said anything publicly, so we will soon. And then also, we've got a little addition to our Covenant subscription service that we're going to launch down and try out. And this, of course, applies to locals as well, that you already have it pretty easy when you want to do a special order. So if you are a Covenant subscriber, starting next week, we're going to launch this service, calling it Covenant Concierge, which I love. Nothing more cool than putting your name in front of another name and forming a alliterative phrase.
Nailed it.
So Covenant Concierge, and the basic idea is this. If you're a current Covenant subscriber, we will take any special order that you have for any game, whether we stock it, carry it, or whatnot, as long as it's like in print and we can get it from any of the distributors that we work with. You tell us what you want. We tell you, yes, we can get that. We charge the card that you have on file with your subscription. We ship it to you, and it shows up. So it's very much a make special orders as easy as possible for our Covenant subscribers, because we do have a payment method on file. We can make this easy for you.
And an address and all that kind of stuff.
We have the whole thing. So tell us what you want. We'll tell you yes or no, we can get it, and then it will either be on the way to you or it won't. And it's that simple. So we're going to be testing that out.
Well, and so that obviously applies to any current products, but also like last week we talked a lot about Outer Rim, which is a Star Wars board game coming up in the future.
You want to pre-order that? We'll do it for you.
If you're a subscriber, you hear us talking about Outer Rim or you see it somewhere, it's like you can literally just email us and say, hey, I want this game. And then it'll show up on release if you're in the US or super close to release, and you don't have to worry about it ever again.
That's right. We're working through the last of those details, and that will be added to our help center. It'll be added to the site.
And if you're a subscriber, I presume you'll get an email and an announcement and all that.
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That's kind of where we are right now. We're moving. We're trying some things. It's a very exciting time. It must be spring.
That's right.
That's what it sounds like
also,
to me.
One thing I wanted to mention on the Keyforge deck gallery stuff is that we launched a new website maybe a month and a half ago. So you go to the Keyforge, go to the homepage, click on Keyforge, right? It's Keyforge category.
If you can't find it, we've done a very bad job.
Yes, that's the number one goal is that you can find it. But if you can filter, right? So there'll probably be a deck gallery filter.
Yeah.
And then in the tag section, you'll see all the different houses.
Yeah.
So you could literally filter it down to the 3-house combo you want and see all the decks that are that specific combo. But I think that's a feature that if you've been using our old site, you wouldn't know existed.
Right.
So check that out.
We need everybody to get hip to that because it's really helpful. But like most things on the web, it's hard. User behavior is tough.
It's a real challenge.
How many websites have I been to that I've like struggled through because I didn't know what their system actually was? Hashtag Ask Covenant from Patrick Sharkey. It's a big one. It's an interesting topic here, and one that I think has been around and is kind of in the collective consciousness of everybody who's thinking about this industry critically. Patrick says, have you found in your experience there's a stereotype of the type of person who plays tabletop games? I think people outside our circles often picture players as overweight men who lack personal hygiene and still live with their parents. There's an awkward moment that comes up when a coworker or extended family member asks what my hobbies are. Despite my being a successful business manager and father of 3, congratulations, Patrick, I often hesitate to share openly that I love playing games. Isn't that a funny sentiment?
That you like playing games?
I can't tell anybody that I love playing games. It's like insane. You could, without batting an eye, you could say you like playing Call of Duty, and everyone's like, oh, whatever, you're normal. Even though you're probably, maybe they will think I never grew up and somehow I'm less of a contributing member of society because I love playing specifically tabletop games. Have you ever felt this tension? If so, how do you see us changing the stereotype and helping tabletop gain the respect so many other hobbies enjoy? Thanks for all you do to build up and support our community. Thank you, Patrick, and thanks for the question.
So a few things on this for me that, yes, have we ever felt this tension? Yes,
100%. And there is a stereotype.
There's a stereotype.
It's 100% true.
And I mean, he describes it, right? I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes, and a lot of times stereotypes, they exist for reasons, not necessarily because they're true, but because there are experiences with that stereotype that leave an impression way greater than any other experience you might have had with the thing. Because I grew up playing when I was very young, playing cards and pick up sticks and chess and poker and all this kind of stuff. I played it with my great aunt who was 60 something, and I played it with my uncle, and like it's just very not stereotypical gamers, as that makes sense. But I remember distinctly, because Pokemon, it was less of an issue. But once I hit those like teenage years and we were still playing Dragon Ball Z or the Star Wars TCG, it was very much, this was in the early 2000s, so culture has changed a lot since then.
Sure.
But it was certainly not something I was shouting from the rooftops that I was doing. And I think that led in part to why Covenant exists, which is the reality that we were enjoying a hobby that was very fun and helped us make a lot of really great friends and have all these great memories, and asking the question, like, why isn't this normal, and why aren't way more people doing it?
That's
why
100% the case.
This hidden thing?
Yeah, why was I uncomfortable telling like a high school girlfriend at the time, or like my, I played football in high school, and it's like I didn't want anybody to know.
Like on a football team,
playing the Star Wars trading card game, and like I cared about it more than any game I ever played of sports.
Yeah, you go to a tournament, and it's like that game matters 10 times more to you than anything
you've ever done. I'm just getting through football, but like I love Star Wars trading card game.
But I think part of that, right, is like there's a lot of, this is a big potential question we could dive into for a long time, but I think a lot of it has to do with just a lot of it's changed since then, right?
Sure.
Since the 90s, since the 2000s.
Well, did the 90s create this stigma? Like, So here's a couple of questions that I have, and I'll just crack this open because like I don't think it's that offensive. There is a reality that from some branches of what ultimately became the tabletop gaming hobby, you had certain stereotypes that were more likely than not going to be what you encountered, right? When I think of like the early impression of somebody who's playing Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer, right? Like, I think it's fair to say that there were not a ton of women doing that. I think it's fair to say that there weren't a ton of like, super athletic dudes getting together and playing Warhammer models, right? But there's a piece of that is like, and I've asked this question a lot because our dad like loves escapism. Like he will read like pulp magazines and old detective novels, and he thinks it has extreme value. Like he's an escapist. Like he thinks everybody should be into this. And he always told us a story about his brother, my Uncle Mark, would always be in the car reading maps and like paying attention to where the car was going and trying to figure that out. And Dad would be buried in a book the whole time and wouldn't know where he was or what was going on. And so there's a certain wiring of wanting to kind of get into these fantasy worlds and like it's like that's more interesting than what's happening in front of you in reality. And that is a natural phenomenon. I think a lot more people could do with a little more imagination-focused childhoods or educations, which I got and I'm super happy about. But I think you also find that a lot of times whenever things aren't going as well in your everyday life, you might be more drawn to get away from that, right? And tabletop games came from, in a lot of ways, a place of being able to escape from things that sucked, right? And that might be getting bullied at school, which is a classic stereotype, or I'm not as fit as other people,
or it could be issues at home, or it
or
could
like
be relationship issues.
Yeah, like my family life is not great, so you had this kind of opportunity to say like, you know what, forget all of that. Like you can be a paladin in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and have the greatest time of your life and not have to worry about how your food's going to get on the table next week, or like whether or not you can get a job, like these kinds of things. So I think there is a subset of maybe there was a higher likelihood of somebody who had less going for them in their everyday life would be more attracted to a fantasy setting. But that's certainly not an exclusive reality of people in the gaming sphere, because you also have people who play chess, or like you said, poker. So if I said, hey, I'm a poker player, would you think, oh, well, you must be this exact kind of person?
Sure.
It's like poker is at a point where like everybody's playing poker and knows about it.
Or has played poker.
I played pitch with Cowboys in Chelsea middle school and high school. It wasn't a nerdy thing to do, and it's a tabletop game, right?
Yeah.
So there are various strands of this that are all kind of meeting in the middle, and I think that's creating this big, diverse kind of like coalition of people who are all like kind of cross-pollinating in the tabletop gaming sphere. And so a lot of that old stigma comes from a very specific subset, and it also comes from a very specific type of marketing that was being done, right? Like,
well, I mean, when that is the subset and you're making products that are going to be sold there and marketed to those people, it dictates what's going to be successful, right? I mean, I do not think, as an example we used a lot on the cast in the past few months, that the game Wingspan by Stonemaier, the bird watching game, would have been successful in 1998.
You wouldn't have put in like White Dwarf, right?
I just don't. I think it would have failed.
Yeah, it would have failed spectacularly.
It would have. I think in 2008 it would have failed, right? And so like something changed from 2008 to 2018, 2019. A lot of things changed. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that that is the case. Right?
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
The stereotype on what it means to play games now is evolving and changing, and it's going to continue to do so. But when you just realize that like a very successful game now would not have had a chance in 2002,
right?
The stereotype exists for a reason. It came out of that same time frame, right? Like the past, essentially.
Yeah, and let's not forget what we dealt with in the 90s, which was a lot of what people's opinion was of tabletop games revolved around the 2020 and Dateline specials on
100%.
The satanic nature of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering.
I remember playing, this is not even in public, playing at home, right? I was playing the Dragon Ball Z trading card game against my brother at home, and it was at the D&D scare, right? My family was super scared about
sure,
it.
yeah.
It's like the back of the card had the big dragon on it, right? The Dragon Ball Z. It's like, got a dragon on it. And we would sleeve the cards and not ever show the backs of the cards because it was like, mildly nervous that we're going to get in trouble for even owning these cards.
Yeah. So the most public-facing interpretations of the hobby at that point were super negative. And we're like all about, look at these weirdos doing weird stuff with satanic rituals.
So how it's made, how it's marketed.
So
what's
boom,
Yeah.
it all gets into that kind of public consciousness. And I think, there's been a lot of people on the frontier of breaking this down because it is not the case anymore. And we hope to be among those listed in the history of tabletop gaming and hopefully help to kind of teach people not only games, but that the hobby itself is incredible and it's open to everybody. I mean, it's a great place to be, and you shouldn't be ashamed to be here. And I do feel like culturally that has finally turned over, especially with the explosion of board games and the variation in different games that are happening.
Well, and I think, we also in that same time frame had the explosion of video games.
Yeah.
Which kind of went through that same cycle of process, right? Who was playing video games in the 80s, right? Like who's on the computers and playing the stuff.
Yeah.
But I think another element of this is culturally, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it was very work a lot, like real life centric kind of stuff. And it's like, I think people are starting to understand how important it is to play together, right?
Yeah.
How to play games, to have this kind of a thing that's also not just like, because TV was another huge thing, right? I mean, I'm rewatching Mad Men right now, and like it comes out and it just wrecks. Like it's just like everything people knew about life changed after TV started happening, right?
Yeah.
And so like that happened 60s, 70s, right? I mean, it was like there's a lot, and like all of a sudden now there's like a form of entertainment that's not, it's lean forward, not lean back kind of a thing, where it's like I'm involved in it instead of it's coming at me, like the TV is. So I think there's a lot of interesting forces on the outside of this at work that are, and I'm very happy with how, I mean, honestly, like we showed up early this morning to play a game of Power Rangers, and it's like 5-year-old me would have freaked out if it was like, this is a normal thing to do.
It is quite a blessing, isn't it?
And it's like Star Wars,
lucky.
right? It's bigger than ever. It's like, it's mainstream.
Yeah.
You have
Marvel
is
Marvel's
mainstream.
blown up,
There's a
yeah.
Pokemon movie coming out next month, and it's like, I think it's going to be incredible, and a lot of people are going to watch it. It's like Pokemon Go, right?
Yeah.
People playing Pokemon that never would, like, when I was a kid, it was like, that was like the like weird new nerdy thing that people did.
Of course, yeah, you like your Tamagotchis or whatever that was,
yeah.
your
So,
Digimon.
I don't know. I think it is changing. I bet, Patrick, just to finalize this for me, it's like I would be shocked, especially if you pick the right 2 or 3 board games, if you start talking to people at work or wherever about the fact you play games, if you just show them, I think it would go over so well. Everyone, like you were even talking earlier about people that were thanking you and your brother for introducing them to games that they otherwise never would have thought to be involved in.
And you gotta kind of own it. I think we're at the point where we just need to own that there's nothing wrong with. In fact, this may be one of the best possible hobbies on earth, and I think you should have the confidence to explain it as such and say, yeah, I love playing board games. Have you never done it? Like, it is one of the greatest things that I've ever experienced. I would love to share that with you. Like, it's really important to me. Do you want to come over and have a beer and play Ticket to Ride or Wingspan?
Well, and I wonder how much the stereotype is built because all of the people, like us and like Patrick,
they don't want to. Yeah, they're not talking.
would hide in the shadows about it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I would very much encourage you. And if people look at you where you're playing games, I think they're crazy.
Yeah.
Like they just don't understand, right?
It makes sense, but they're also kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's unfortunate. I think they would gain a lot and enjoy a lot from actually playing these games. So
it's a public good, Zach.
if you do introduce people to this stuff, I would love to hear how that goes. Good or bad, I would love to hear it. So
yeah, let's talk about that actually. So this is the end of the show. Thank you guys so very much for watching and or listening. We hope you enjoyed what we've talked about today. What we want to ask you guys, and you can leave an answer, use the hashtag AskCovenant on YouTube or Facebook are the 2 primary platforms, but Twitter also works, and Instagram's weird. I don't think it really works well on Instagram, does it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what the kids do. I'm like in my 30s now. I'm so out of touch.
Snap me.
On this note of stereotypes and tension, have you also felt the tension? You kind of that first time branching out and bringing, some of the people who maybe you didn't expect to be interested in games. How did you introduce them to the games? What did you say, and how did that go over? Please let us know. We'd love any advice for anyone like Patrick out there who has felt that tension and would like to maybe break through it with a new playgroup.
And if you're unfamiliar, Stephen mentioned the hashtag AskCovenant. Questions like Patrick get asked on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Use the hashtag AskCovenant. We're happy to answer your questions right here on the show.
Thank you guys so very much for listening and watching. We appreciate you being here, and until next time, keep playing.